This episode of The Clear Out was recorded on the 3rd of July 2024 at home in Wicklow, and it is a slightly unusual episode. I hope that doesn't make you too trepidatious, in that I switched location for the recording, so you can see what you make of that when the episode begins properly. So yeah, it's really an episode in which I try to honour a place that has had great significance to me over the last few years, and then I switch subjects to something totally unrelated, which is about female role modelling, I suppose, and femaleness, femininity, and what that can look like. So I look at two quite extreme examples of that, and I'm trying to put that into a context of being a parent to a daughter, and looking at, well, how would she see that? That could be a huge topic all of its own, but I focused on two things in particular. So that is what's coming up. So it's a bit of a natural episode, if you will. And if you won't, you probably won't have made it this far. Okay, I will see you around the corner. Cheers.
Not gonna change my mind, leaving the dream behind. Keep my emojis.
Hi, my name is Dara Clear, and you're listening to The Clear Out. You're very welcome. You're very welcome indeed. It's so good to have you with me. And if this episode sounds a little different, if this is not your first time to visit this place, it's because I'm in my garden. That's right. This is somewhat of an experiment, and whether or not it works, it'll still be the episode you hear, because I don't have enough time to record another episode. So we'll just wait and see. And I know you're asking yourself, there must be a really good reason he's recording the podcast in the garden. There must be something very funky or cool going on, or maybe he's got an interesting guest to speak to. No, none of those things apply. I just followed an impulse, and it's a delayed impulse, because I had the impulse about 24 hours ago or 25 hours ago, because I came out here last night and the garden felt lovely. The whole vibe and atmosphere in the garden felt really good, and I thought, hey man, maybe it would be cool to sit in the garden and do the pod in the garden, or take the mic around the garden. I'm not going to do that. And I just thought, yeah, why not? So there will be sounds. There will be environmental sounds from this specific place that will feature throughout the duration of the show. As I'm sitting here, the road is only 40 or 50 feet away, so you will hear traffic going by, tractors maybe. I'm in the countryside. You may also hear Uno the rooster, who just before I pressed record was crowing his head off as he landed on his nighttime branch to sleep for the night. I'm not sure if he was crowing at the sun going down, or if he was just crowing to acknowledge how great he is, flying up to that branch of the oak tree. But yeah, I do have another reason for wanting to be in the garden, because here at #blessed our days are numbered. I have raised this once or twice in the last few months, but we are only going to, this time next month we won't be here. We'll have moved into our new abode, which I may end up calling #small. I'll decide on that once we're in and have a better feel for the place. #small sounds a bit derogatory, or maybe a bit insulting to our new place, which is lovely. Thank goodness, we're very lucky to have found somewhere, and it's very close to where we are now, so even better. But more on that once we're in. But yeah, here I am in our garden. It's the back garden, and it's a garden that is surrounded by mature trees. I'm sitting under a big ash tree. There's a big beech tree to my left, then there's some conifer trees that are really tall, and then on the other side of the house I can see a sycamore and a willow and more conifers, and a birch tree, more conifers, and then the big oak tree which is to the other side of the house. Big trees. And a little moment ago there was a rainbow up above my left shoulder in the sky. Where else would it be, you say? So that was nice. There's a little bit of a wind blowing. It's not particularly cold. It's not roasting, but it's just mild. But one of the things I missed most when I was in Australia, when I was in Melbourne for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, I missed the long summer nights that you get in Ireland. And yeah, they're just they really are a bit special. I think maybe, I don't know if they're appreciated. Obviously the further north you go, the longer the evenings get in the summer. I mean, I'm talking about Northern Europe, but you know, we still have, you know, great light 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, and it's kind of special, and it does make up for the long dark winter with those short those all too short days. Yeah, so, you know, in a way, part of my motivation to be out here was to just sort of acknowledge the garden. There's also a little plum tree in the garden, which is lovely, and it's beside the old shed, and the roof of the shed is covered in a luscious green creeper. I don't know what it is, but the vines sort of hang over the old kind of broken door of the shed. It's really, yeah, it's lovely. And then there's a little rose bush to the side of the shed as well, and then some nice flowers in the garden that my wife has studiously tended over the last couple of years. So it's a great garden. It is a great garden, and I'm really going to miss it. And the front garden is lovely as well. So yeah, I'm I'm a big believer in sort of acknowledging a place that has given so much, and it's not to have like a ceremony or anything like that, but just to sort of have a moment to go, wow, this has been a great garden, and I've done so much in this garden. I mean, I've done over 1,500 sessions of exercise in this garden between my own routine and morning regime, as well as teaching karate classes and self-defense classes and tai chi, qigong classes. It's been just central to a lot of my activity and self-care and teaching and advocacy, I suppose, if you want to think of it that way, over the last 3.5 years. So not underused, let's put it that way. And I know my wife has got a lot out of this garden as well, and our daughter. So yeah, is that completely redonkulous hippie nonsense? I don't think it is. I mean, whatever, you know. I shouldn't preempt. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, like, think of it this way. And this is not to make you feel bad if you don't have a nice garden or don't live in a nice place. I hope you do. But truly special places aren't that common. And I know when I refer to this place as #blessed, it sounds like I'm being facetious, but I'm not. I think this place where we've been living for the last 3.5 years has been one of the favourite places I've ever lived, if not the favourite place I've ever lived. And ironically, for the lifespan of the podcast, which is 3 years old, this hasn't been this hasn't been a good time in my life. Like, this has been a tough time in my life personally, for lots of different reasons. So it's kind of amazing to think that for 3 years I've put this podcast out every single week, and largely, I think anyway, I don't know what your perception is if you're a regular listener, but largely it's been it's been quite consistently positive. I feel like it's a little kind of dose of sort of reality based, or reality centered positivity. It's not just platitudes, and as I've said quite a few times over the years, it hasn't just been a sort of an aesthetic or a vibe of wellness. It's been it's been a very conscientious attempt to engage with honest living, honest thinking, honest feeling. And I've been doing that, and I think I'd be very confident that you could go back and listen to any of the previous episodes and go, yeah, that was there were good things in that. There were good things to think about. Good things were said. It gave me something good to take away. And the point I'm trying to make is, the irony is, I feel like all of that has been very real, but that's all been happening while I have I've been in a very tough time in my life. And I was just talking to someone about this. I wasn't talking about myself for a change, but I was talking to somebody about this the other day in a Tai Chi class. I have a couple of people who come to me for Qigong and Tai Chi once a week, and I was saying that when we talk about a moment, typically when we say that, we think of a second, half a second, a millisecond, a moment, and being present in the moment. But I was presenting the frame, or the idea that a moment can be much longer than that. A moment can be a few days, a few hours, a week. A moment can be a month. A moment can be 6 months. A moment can be a year. A moment can be a whole phase of your life. And I don't think I'm spinning that to suit my argument. I really believe that. Like, you can be just sort of, stuck or unable to escape something. And, this has been a very sort of bittersweet few years for me in this place, because so many things I've liked about it, and so many things I've loved about being here, and so many good things have happened. Like, the podcast started in this place, and other things started in this place. So they're real positives that I take, and yet it hasn't been a good moment in my life. And funnily enough, I had a text message from a friend a few days ago who said she just got a job, and the phrase she used was, "I'm unstuck," in a good sense, because sometimes you say, "Oh, I came unstuck," and that has a negative connotation. but she was using it in the opposite sense of having been stuck in something she wasn't really enjoying, and getting unstuck from that into something that hopefully will be really positive and let her thrive. So yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think? Does that resonate? Does it make sense to you? Yeah, I don't know. I believe that. What if that moment is your whole life? Oh man, I shouldn't joke about such things. Recently, sadly, in this garden, there has been a lot of death. Again, it sounds like I'm going to start making jokes, and I laugh immediately. But 2 months ago, we still had 5 chickens, and we're down to 1. We're down to Uno, the rooster, and his days are numbered anyway because he's been attacking my wife, and so he's got to go. He's got to go to the chicken coop in the sky. But Uno's mother and aunt were taken by a fox a couple of months ago. I did report this on the podcast, and the fox did come into the garden the following evening for seconds, and I ran him, and that was fine. And then we had Uno's, let me get this right, Uno's cousin, Bluey, was taken. And that was very sad, because Bluey was my daughter Maeve's favourite chicken. And when Bluey was taken, that was also the day we were burying Marlon, our 22-year-old cat. And I just felt like it was too much to say, oh, by the way, a fox came and got Bluey last night, this morning. So I just disappeared Bluey's remains, which was just a bunch of feathers, and didn't tell my daughter at all. In fact, we just went with the story that Bluey had disappeared and vanished and was taken, and that was very sad. And it was very sad. And my daughter grieved accordingly. And that left... Who did that leave? Oh, that left Bob Ross. So Bob Ross was Bluey's sister. And for the last couple of weeks, Bob Ross was sitting in long grass, sitting on 8 eggs, seeing if they were going to hatch. But they didn't. So Bob Ross, she'd go in for a couple of days and come out and get some chicken feed and go back in. And then in the last 3-4 days, Bob Ross came out from the long grass and didn't bother to go back in. So that was it, no little chicks, and that was fine. And this morning I was in the bathroom, and I was just kind of looking through the sort of frosted glass outside, and I could see a white shape on the ground that looked very ominous. And so I came outside, and sadly Bob Ross was taken in the night. And in fact, taken is the wrong word, because Bob Ross wasn't taken. Bob Ross was killed and just left, which is very unusual. And it was really not pretty to look at. And I just felt so sad for that chicken. And Uno, the rooster, who was very keen to make more eggs, egg babies with Bob Ross, in that vampiric way, because Uno is black, and he spreads his feathers like a huge cowl or cape when he jumps up on top of Bob Ross. It's not a pretty sight. But Uno just kind of stood by the dead Bob Ross this morning, curious and maybe not really comprehending that, oh, my cousin that I like to try and make babies with is dead. It was grim, and it wasn't a nice start to the day, and I just felt very sad. So, I mean, I'm never going to be a chicken farmer, and I know what my wife's position will be. Kiara's away in Australia at the moment. She and Maeve are about to... they'll be on a plane in the next 24 hours, winging their way back to the Emerald Isle. And I know what Kiara's position will be. No more chickens. Which I think is fair enough. Because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when animals that are allegedly in your care get taken. Now, look, that said, we know people. We've got friends who have chickens, and chickens being got is par for the course. Unless you keep them in total lockdown like Fort Knox. And we haven't. Our chickens have been sort of free roaming, free ranging. And our chickens have flight capacity, so they get up in the trees where they've been safe. It will take a very clever fox to get Uno, for example, up in the oak tree at the moment. It's 15, 20 feet off the ground, so the fox isn't getting up there. And I just presumed that's where Bob Ross was last night, although somebody was suggesting today that maybe it was a pine marten. Maybe a pine marten got Bob Ross, had a little nibble on... I'm not even going to tell you because it's just too grim. Anyway, so look, that's that's yin and yang, man. That's it's the soft and the hard, the white and the black, the light and the dark, silk and steel. That was the name, I think, of a kung fu book I read. Silk and steel. Hard and soft. These are the dynamics and the textures you play with in martial arts. Staccato, legato for musicians. Yeah, so there you go. Anyway, there's been a few spits of rain. So this little adventure might be called to a halt prematurely, but I'll persevere for now. So my laptop, my mic, and some other things I have out here, I don't need them to get wet. That wouldn't be cool. Yeah. Anyway, look, there you go. Garden time. So what else? I'll tell you what else. Do you know what I was watching yesterday? This is it's funny. I did 5 episodes on masculinity recently, just trying to explore the very many aspects of masculinity and looking at masculinity from different viewpoints and through different lenses and different contexts. Partially inspired by this course that I'm doing in men's studies at the moment. I'm just partially following my own interests. But if you've been paying attention, after the 5 episodes on masculinities, I've done, I think, 3 episodes in a row that have been really female-centred. I did an episode with a short story with a female protagonist, and then I did an episode about Radisha Adeleke and the racist abuse she was being subjected to, and then last week I did an episode that was a response to the Natasha O'Brien case and male violence against women, and so I've sort of been, that wasn't conscious. I wasn't consciously going, I did a load of stuff about men, now I'm going to do stuff about women, but it's just naturally been what's coming out. And I'm just going to continue. I'm going to continue with that now, because yesterday, I was hoping to do the podcast yesterday, but I was absolutely exhausted. I've been working all day, digging, and that was tiring enough as it was, but I was also recovering from 2 migraines in 3 days, and I was just wiped out and really spacey. Like, my brain just was really spacey and not really able to put a couple of consecutive thoughts together. So it just, it wasn't the time to sit down and try and do the podcast in my normal mode. I was even considering doing now one of those episodes where I blind read poems from random books on the shelf. And you're thinking, thank God. Thank God he didn't do that. But I just was, spacing off, and I sat down. I sat down with dinner, and I just threw on Netflix, and I looked at the first episode of a documentary series on the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, and it's called America's Sweethearts. And I don't know. Look, I'm not an American football fan. I don't follow the NFL. I'm not especially a cheerleader fan. I'm not a cheerleader fan. I mean, there are aesthetic pleasures that, at first glance. But, I just thought, okay, well, maybe this will be interesting, because clearly these, women are in like phenomenal physical condition and super athletic and fit, and, maybe it'll be, gives a look at, what goes on behind the scenes, which I think is what it's purporting to do. But I watched the first episode, and I came away kind of going, wow, what's the message here? Like, if you're a young girl watching this, what sort of message is it? Because these young women are being so blatantly objectified, which is part and parcel of the gig, I guess. And it's, on one level, it's as it should be, that they are going to be scrutinised physically, because they are very much about presenting a physical aesthetic of bubbly, smiling, beautiful, athletic, bouncy femininity that is sort of, is it kind of chastely sexualized? I know that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but you know what I mean. It's kind of like good, clean, wholesome sexual fun, family friendly sexual packaging. And that all, that by itself, you can go, okay, well, they're dancers, dancers, cheerleaders. They're, there's probably like a gymnastic and acrobatic element in there as well, tumbling, all the rest. But just watching that first episode, what is very clear is, like, these girls are being, rigorously, scrutinized on the basis of their physical attributes, whether that's their makeup, their hair, how much body fat they have. And you're watching it going, okay, well, that, I guess, all, like a lot of dancers would go through this, and models would go through this, all women, of course, or the majority of them would be women. And but you're watching it, or I was watching it at least, going, well, okay, well, but they're part of this huge NFL franchise, which is worth gazillions. So, at least they're getting, well compensated for all the, everything they put themselves through, and, the dieting and the physical regimes, and, staying in shape and maintaining that hyper positive facade and getting on with everybody and not letting the brand down. And then you realise, oh no, they're not getting well compensated at all. That the sort of historic tradition of the cheerleaders was that they were doing it for the love, and used to get a pittance per game. And now, however many years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, they're basically getting like a fast food restaurant wage, and many of them work full-time jobs as well as doing all the work they have to do and being subjected to this kind of pitiless scrutiny on a regular basis by the higher-ups who are responsible for running the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. And you're just looking at these young women who are anything from like 18 to maybe mid-20s at the oldest, and you just see it. You see it in their faces. You see the stress, you see the pressure, you see the strain, and they know the cameras are there and they're doing their little interviews, with the director, and trying to present the shiny, happy people vibe. But you're just looking through it and kind of going, is this madness? It feels like madness. And at the very least, you should be making a really good bloody wage doing this. And then you've got the female owner of the Dallas Cowboys basically addressing this question of hardly any money being given to them by saying that, well, it's their vocation, and it's, they love it, and there aren't a lot of opportunities out there for dancers, and this is their purpose. And you just go, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What the hell are you talking about? Would you work for no money, or for like hardly any money? It's just like it's just exploitation. And there are the whole kind of framework around it. I don't know. It just feels like it's. Am I mad? It just feels like it's. It sets feminism back 100 years. It's very weird. It's very strange, weird stuff. And I don't know, because I was thinking, my daughter's 10, and I don't know what she'd make of that. Like, would she just kind of see it for what it is, or would she just compartmentalise those women and go, oh, well, they're dancers, and that's what dancers do, or they're cheerleaders, that's what cheerleaders do, and they do their makeup that way, and they do their hair that way, and they subject themselves to this this scrutiny and examination, and you can't shake that objectification idea. And there was a part of that first show where they had to do their solo auditions, and the established cheerleaders, the young women who are there in the squad already, they have to re-audition every year, which feels gross. And again, it comes back to their physical condition. So it's kind of vile. And again, I was trying to contextualize it, like, without just being all reactive to it. I was trying to kind of go, well, if it's okay for, male sports people, male gymnasts, male swimmers, male soccer players, to be in excellent physical condition, and we can go, wow, that's a body. And again, they're mostly young, good-looking men, living their best lives. And I don't hear many people complaining about objectifying those men. And again, I know that probably sounds a little bit disingenuous, because men aren't objectified in the same way as women. There's no two ways about that. But I was trying to go, well, why shouldn't I just accept these women? These women, who are in their early 20s, late teens, in maybe the best shape they'll ever be in their lives. Young, beautiful, bouncy, stretchy, athletic, fit, strong, incredibly skilled and coordinated, adept. Why can't I just go, yeah, cool? Because of is it because of the money? Is it because they're getting so little money? Is it because is it because of the way that when they're being assessed in their solo audition, that it's like all the judges have, and I'm speaking metaphorically, but it's like all the judges have calipers out to measure the shape of their thighs or their necks or their cheeks, or their stomachs or their arms, and also in that panel of judging experts, I think the line from the Dallas Cowboys people is like a good cross section of people from the Dallas Cowboys community. So you have like an influencer, thought leader guy, black guy, who's kind of a fitness dude and a thought leader. And then you have the guy who makes works for the company who makes the cowboy boots that the cheerleaders wear. And then there's some choreographers and maybe some other fitness people. And then the two women who run the cheerleaders and the owner, another woman. And then really, crucially, to really add to the critical assessment of these young women is the local weatherman. What the hell? The local weatherman for whatever the Dallas TV station. I mean, doesn't that somehow cheapen the experience? This is how highly we value your art. We're bringing the weatherman to give his tuppence worth, so he can go, yeah, she's got it. Oh yeah, she's got the Dallas she's got the Dallas Cowboys thing. It's really not good. It's really not good. And I know you can go, look, these shows are not meant to be rigorous takedowns of sexual hypocrisy and exploitation and objectification. They're not meant to be exposés. They're just meant to be trashy entertainment. Yeah, maybe. Well, I don't think I'll be watching any more. And just as a counterpoint, right? Just as a counterpoint, to go, can we see some women who are being valued or being centered in a story for attributes other than their perfect physiques and how high they can kick and their ear to ear grins. And that's another thing about the Dallas Cowboys thing. They're young. They're young women. There's a real vulnerability there. And did I say that many of them work full-time jobs because the money's so bad? So one of the young women was like a full-time nurse. Anyway. So look, here's a counterpoint to the Dallas Cowboys, to America's Sweethearts. There's another show called Alaska's Sweethearts. No, sorry, that's not what it's called. It's called True Detective Season 4. Wait, there's a it's got a subtitle, that series. What is it? The North Country? Is that it? No, I thought it was something more sinister than that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, True Detective. I don't know if you're familiar with True Detective. It's an anthology series. And if you don't know what an anthology series is, it's basically where there's a TV show and they do a season and that's great, and then they come back for another season and it's got a completely different cast. So there's a through line thematically, or a through line structurally, but it's different characters, different actors, different location. And True Detective announced itself with a bang about, I don't know, 10 years ago, when in the first season you had Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey as two detectives in the southern states of America investigating some horrible crimes. And it was part of that sort of Matthew McConaughey, the reconnaissance, as they called it, because he was this very complex, layered, enigmatic character who was butting heads with his investigative partner, played by the ever reliable Woody Harrelson. And it was a kind of a slice of, I don't know, was it Southern Gothic? There's something kind of dark and twisty in there, and it was, it was good. It was very entertaining. And then the next season came along, and it was not received anywhere near as well. Although I think it's very good. I think it's well worth checking out. It has an excellent Colin Farrell performance in it, an unexpected Vince Vaughn performance in it, Kelly Riley, some really nice actors in it, and in fact that's the one with Rachel McAdams is in that, and she's very good in that as well. So yeah, that's worth checking out. And then season 3, again, who was in that one? Stephen Dorff and oh my goodness, I just gone blank on his name. He won a couple of Best Supporting Actor Oscars in a row, didn't he? Mahershala Ali, guy from Green Book and Moonlight, amongst other things. So he's in that one, very good as well. So a lot of very, very male. I mean, Rachel McAdams was kind of the kind of standout, maybe female character. But then season 4 comes along, which came out at the end of last year, early this year, and it's set in Alaska, and its central protagonists are Jodie Foster and Callie Reese, or Race, I don't know how to pronounce her surname. I've never come across her before. She's a boxer. In when she's not acting, she's a boxer, and they're both great. They're both brilliant, and they have this very fractious relationship. They worked together before as cops, and then they went to different kind of branches of the police force, so they're not working side by side anymore, but they've got history. There's niggle. Neither of them is particularly easy to get along with. They're just tough. They're just tough women, and they're messy and they're imperfect, and in many ways they're just like typical male characters. They're like typical male cop characters, messy, a little bit drinky, a little bit sleep-aroundy, kind of chaotic, driven though, because that's the hallmark of all your standard TV cops and movie cops. They're driven, and they won't stop until they solve the case. They won't stop until they crack the case. And there's a lot of that in this. Christopher Eccleston, of all people, turns up in this, and I thought his American accent was so good. I was like, is that really Christopher Eccleston? Because he I want to say he's Scottish, isn't he? Maybe he's not Scottish, because the first thing I saw him in was Danny Boyle's Shallow Grave a million years ago, and they were all playing Scottish characters in that, weren't they? So maybe he's not Scottish. And then he was in Our Friends in the North later in the 90s on TV, and he was good in that. Anyway, great accent. There's a couple of Irish actresses in the show as well, Fiona Shaw and Dervla Kirwan, formerly of Ballykiss Angel, which is where Colin Farrell first made a name for himself. But again, to put this into the context of the previous discussion around the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, like, I'm looking at those two things, right? True Detective season 4 on one hand, and the Dallas Cheerleaders documentary series on the other hand. I go, should I care? about these different iterations of femininity, of femaleness, of womanhood, because I do care. And like, I'd be like, well, if I wanted my daughter to watch one of these, I wouldn't let her watch either of them at the moment. Maybe in a few years. She's only 10, so you know she can wait a few years before I'd expose her to True Detective, because it's pretty grim, dark stuff, and it's scary, and there is a sort of a slightly horror aspect to to this season. But you know, you kind of you ask yourself which would have the more pernicious effect on a young girl's brain or on her understanding of womanhood. True Detective with some of its grisly crime things, or a whole series of young women who are dedicating themselves to a few years of their lives to being, you know, physically perfect, and to be accepting of being assessed on that basis. I mean, I think that's part of the issue for me. And let me be clear, just in case there's any confusion, I am not judging those young women at all. I just think it's appalling that they are not being rewarded properly for that job, for that work, like with a proper salary, when there's so much money in that sport. And I think the Dallas Cowboys are a particularly successful franchise, paying their players multiple millions of dollars in salaries. And these young women who I guess are central to that experience, to the Dallas Cowboys brand, are getting shafted, and they're sort of being brainwashed into being grateful for having that experience. It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong on so many levels. And you know, the body image stuff. I mean, if that's the name of the game, if you're going to be a cheerleader, you're going to have to be in a certain physical shape. Although what I haven't mentioned, and this is another thing, and you know, it is predominantly white blonde white blonde women. So you know, you could say, like, is there also a slightly, you know, racist thing going on here? And again, certainly the idea of holding up an ideal of feminine beauty as blonde and white is it's not a great message, is it? And you know, no offense to the beautiful the beautiful blonde women out there, it's not about that. But yeah, I don't know. And then to flip the question to the other side, would I be happy for my daughter to see those two female protagonists in True Detective Season 4? Because they're both really sort of badass and tough and flawed, really, truly imperfect characters, messy and kind of doing damage, but also very honourable and moralistic in their way. Like I say, again, you know, these would be conventionally male traits in those kinds of shows, and you wouldn't bat an eyelid. But when you see women in those roles, you know, women being dominant sexually, women being dominant physically, aggressively, women not worried about alienating people, women not playing good girls while being the good guys in the story, it's kind of cool. It's kind of very cool, actually. And yeah, certainly I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'd be much more happy for my daughter to be consuming those messages and internalizing that model of femaleness, that model of womanhood, because to me it feels far more empowering than looking at a young woman crying her eyes out because of the stress of thinking she might be, 1% over on her body fat. Hasn't that sort of body obsession caused so much pain? Doesn't it cause so much pain? And like eating disorders and neuroses and insecurity, and feeds cults of body shaming, and feeds just the widespread toxic ideas around female beauty, around what female beauty is, or around what female beauty should be. That idea of it should look like this. I just really, really, really hope that my daughter manages to dodge some of these bullets. And I certainly try not to kind of say things that would lay ground for those thoughts to take hold. In the area of body shaming, or in the area of let's applaud this particular female shape or this particular female look. I wouldn't do that anyway. But do you know what I mean? It's not, I'm trying to say it's in my frame. It's in my frame when I'm with my daughter, when it's part of what maybe we're organically bumping up against in the world, or in movies that we watch or shows that we watch. But of course, there's so much more out there that she will be. Oh, there's a bat. This is fun, doing the podcast in the garden with the bat. Yeah. Anyway, look. Dallas Cheerleaders, I wish them well. I just wish they were organised labour. I wish they had a union and a rep and someone to take the Dallas Cowboys to court and recompense them properly, because it's just so messed up. There's so many dodgy messages in that whole thing. Yeah. Anyway, look. I don't know. Live your life, but like it just comes back to sort of pure capitalism, economics, exploiting people, not paying people enough so they can live a proper life. It's the whole system has to change. Yeah. Okay, look, I know that's a very unsatisfactory conclusion, but it's all I've got, because I'm gonna get in out of the garden to just type up some show notes and get this baby ready for issue, ready for publication, so to speak. So that was episode 163 from the garden in #blessed, and I hope it felt. I probably did feel a little bit funky, did it, or not? And I hope the sound quality was all right. I will be back next week with something else. My women will be back next week also. They're arriving home in a couple of days, which is nice, after their trip down under. As always, if you like what you hear on this show, this independent production, you can throw me some love on social media. You'll find the Clear Out on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. And if you wanted to even go so far as to email me, you could do so at theclearoutlive@gmail.com. And if you really, really like what you hear, you can even support this show financially by using the Patreon link. That's patreon.com/theclearout. And for the price of, I don't know, a can of Coke, a can of Fanta, a can of Club Orange, you can throw your financial heft behind this. But like, it's all good, whatever. Don't worry about it. If you can't afford it, don't do it. If you can't afford it, do. If you don't think it's worth it, poor me. If you do think it's worth it, why aren't you giving me your money? Because so much stuff is for free. That's it, isn't it? That's how I justify not throwing money at anyone. Okay, take care. Thanks for joining me in the garden, and I will talk to you next week. All the best. Travel safely. Mind yourselves. Good luck. Bye.